I think that day or the next day, I was talking to him. He told me about it, and I was the one who was like, "Holy cow, dude! You just saw a shadow person. You had a shadow person encounter." Hello, readers, writers, and all-around book lovers. Welcome to another exciting and entertaining episode of The Writing Lair. Welcome back. My name is Brady Longmore. I'm an independently published author. I currently have 4 books in publication. I'm working on book number 5. And this is The Writing Lair. If you're a first-time visitor, we like to talk about reading, writing, and like the paranormal, Bigfoot, UFOs, ghosts, that kind of stuff. So if you're into the mysterious, the paranormal, the dark, that kind of thing, welcome. You belong here with me in The Writing Lair. So let me ask you real quick, do me a favor, like and subscribe to my channel. Help a struggling artist out a little bit. For those of you who already subscribed, thank you. I appreciate your support. On tonight's episode, or this episode, it's nighttime for me right now. On this episode, I wanted to talk a little bit about a phenomenon out there. Have you ever heard of shadow people? Some of you may have. It's a kind of a lesser known part of the paranormal spectrum, I guess. We've all heard of Bigfoot. We've all heard of ghosts and UFOs and demons. But there's this other kind of out on the edge a little bit, this phenomenon known as shadow people. I'm going to scoot my chair. I'm going to cover up my Sasquatch and salad fingers behind me, if you don't. I wonder how many people watching this know who Salad Fingers is. It's this this little guy over my left shoulder. That guy, Salad Fingers. YouTube it. And then watch at your own risk. Salad Fingers. There's my recommendation for the day. Anyway, shadow people. Back to shadow people. Okay. So there's this phenomenon out there. And what it is it's basically a... most people report seeing it out of their peripheral vision from the sides. And it's always this quick glimpse of like... It's always humanoid. And it's kind of this 3-dimensional silhouetted... figure of a person. A lot of times they just walk by, you look and they're gone. Maybe a lot of us have probably experienced that feeling like you just saw something out of the corner of your eye, you look, it's gone, but maybe you saw, and people report seeing like the person, but they don't have any features. They're all black, like if someone projected a silhouette on the wall, but it was kind of 3-dimensional. Pretty creepy sounding, right? Shadow people. And even the name. Researched it a little bit. The phenomenon has been around for, millennia, centuries. A lot of cultures and past people have reported or have had these legend of the shadow people kind of in their mythology. The Arabic peoples that they call them the jinn, and a lot of you have probably heard of jinn. It's kind of a demon, kind of a in the Islam world. They're kind of a demon, I guess. And I don't quote me on that. I'm not an expert, but these even the Choctaw Indians of North America, the Choctaw Native American tribe, had these stories of these shadow people. That were supposed to be kind of these beings from the underworld that were visiting. So they're not new. It's not new, but it's relatively unheard of, I think. I didn't know much about them until not that long ago. I have a story for you, though. And so, and then maybe we can talk a little bit about it. I'll just get into the story here. So, this happened to a friend of mine. It's a true story that happened to a friend of mine. I will call him Dwayne for the purposes of anonymity in this YouTube show, just in case he doesn't want people to know who he is in real life. But Dwayne told me this story. This happened a couple of summers ago. Dwayne was mowing his yard. So this is kind of weird. A lot of times these shadow people, these sightings, they happen at night, just as you're going to bed. You see something in the corner of your room, that kind of stuff. This was in broad daylight and outside, which is a rare occurrence. And let me preface by saying Dwayne had no idea what a shadow person is. He's never heard of them. He doesn't know anything about them. So this is what makes it kind of weird, is because when he told me the story, I was the one that had to tell him what a shadow person was. So that made it kind of interesting, I thought, and made it more believable to me. So he doesn't coming up to me going, "I saw a shadow person." He's just like, "I saw the weirdest thing the other day. I've got to tell you about it." So he's mowing his lawn. He's got a riding mower. He's on his tractor, cruising around in the backyard mowing, and he's coming up the side of the yard to mow in the front. And as he rounds the corner, he's got this front yard, and right in the middle, it's not a very big front yard, but right in the middle is this tree. I'm not sure what kind of tree it is. I used to know. What kind of tree is that? Anyway, he's got this tree growing in his front yard. It's not that big around, maybe about the circumference of like a basketball, maybe a little bigger. But he's coming around, he looks up, and out towards the road, not far from this tree, but just standing there, is a shadow person. He described it as a tall, lanky, three-dimensional silhouette of a person. And he said it immediately reminded me of Abraham Lincoln, because he was wearing a top hat. You could see the outline of a top hat and a long overcoat, like Abraham Lincoln would wear, this coat that hung down. You could see the coat kind of, where the outline of the coat was kind of like this knee-length overcoat, like maybe they wore back in the day, So he said totally like Abraham Lincoln, tall, lanky, top hat, overcoat. And he said, I come around the corner on my mower, and I just look up, and there's this person. And he's like, how your brain just doesn't register right away what you've seen or what you are seeing. So before he had a chance to, his brain immediately just registered, there's a person in my yard. And this person was in the act of walking towards him, with his head kind of down, I think, he said. And at first, he just was like, who's in my yard? Who is this? And then he noticed, like, wait a second. That's a shadow. That's just what am I seeing? This all happened very quickly. It was a very quick encounter, which most shadow person sightings are very quick. He said it seemed as if I had surprised this being, because as I was coming around the corner, as I looked up at it, it seemed to look up at me and notice me for the first time. So it didn't have physical eyes, but they made eye contact in a way. And he goes, it felt like I made eye contact with this being, and there was a slight hesitation. It was still in the act of walking, but there's this slight hesitation, and as it was getting closer, it made this conscious decision to just step. So he steps, and he just steps behind the tree, like just kind of like step, boom, behind the tree, and then he vanished, like he'd walked through some kind of invisible door. And the tree, this tree, like I said, isn't big enough to hide a person behind. So it was like, he says, and he was just gone. And this was in the broad daylight. He's wide awake. This isn't someone dreaming or having some kind of dream. He's not on drugs. There's not on any kind of medication. There's no reason for him to having some kind of hallucination or anything like that. It was just a quick couple of seconds. this being, this person, what personage, whatever it was gone. And when he I think that day or the next day, I was talking to him. He told me about it, and I was the one who was like, "Holy cow, dude! You just saw a shadow person. You had a shadow person encounter." And he had to ask me, well, what's a shadow person? And so I had to explain it to him. And his was a classic, because one of the things people report seeing a lot is they call him Hat Man. And it's the same thing he saw, a tall, lanky figure with a top hat. And he actually has a name, Hat Man, which is really creepy. Sometimes he has red eyes. And a lot of people see him in their doorway. They'll wake up, they look in their, they'll be having like a sleep paralysis, which we might do an episode on that too someday, but they might be having a sleep paralysis episode, or just waking up from a nightmare. They look and there's Hat Man standing in their corner of their room, or standing in the doorway of their bedroom. Sometimes they see him, you're walking down a hallway and you see out of the corner of your eye, Hat Man walk, cross from one room into the next. Just these creepy, weird appearances and apparitions by this being called Hat Man. And Dwayne saw this without ever having heard of it before, which is, it's one of those things. It's not some kind of hardcore evidence. It's just this anecdotal evidence that kind of helps to fortify to me, what is going on here? Something's going on. Unless Dwayne's just lying, which I know he's not, but that would be the only explanation. He's either hallucinating because he's on some kind of meds, or he's just lying and trying to get attention. I know both those things aren't true. So something's going on. These shadow people. Now there's some explanations. Like there's the old story that it was it was a jinn. Some people say they are demons. Some people say so. The I guess in paranormal circles, there's kind of a debate about what these could be, because a lot of people are saying they're not ghosts. This is not a ghost. It's not a poltergeist or anything like that. It's something else. And I think the paranormal experts all kind of happen to agree on that it's something else, but they just can't figure it out. And there's a lot of theories, and some people say it's aliens. Aliens making some kind of appearance. For me, I'm like, aliens wearing a overcoat and a top hat. I don't know. One theory that I tend to really like, because a lot of people report that these shadow people. Of course, there's plenty of reports that claim that it was a hostile feeling. There was a bad feeling in the presence of these things. But a lot of people say it was nothing. Like Dwayne was saying, it wasn't scary. There was no feeling of animosity. There was no feeling of terror. It was just kind of like, what did I just see, And it was like just this, he goes, I felt like I surprised him just as much as he surprised me. And then he was able to vanish. And one theory I heard about shadow people is that they are living in a different dimension. And they're aware of us, but we aren't aware of them. And they are able to, and then look up, what do you call it? I'm thinking Big Bang Theory. What were those kind of, what science? It's late at night. It's 1:00 in the morning. Physicists. Okay, these physicists would tell you that the idea of parallel universes and other dimensions is, that's not like science fiction. That is a theory that has some validity to it. So the idea that maybe that there's a parallel dimension, I want to say parallel universe, but another dimension. So they say, think of dimensions like the pages of a book, and for every page is a different dimension. So our dimension, our reality is just one of these pages, and we're just sandwiched in between other realities and dimensions, and maybe sometimes a dimension that's right on top of us or right next to us, there's this bleed through, and sometimes we're occupying the same space as someone else living in a different dimension, and for a moment there's like a rip in the fabric, or a thinning of the fabric that separates these dimensions somehow, some kind of quantum, I couldn't explain it, but when, Sheldon Cooper or some of these guys might be able to explain it, but there's a thinning of the fabric of between these dimensions, and these beings kind of bleed through, and maybe we appear to them as shadow people. They might be in another dimension talking about us, and maybe we're freaking them out as much as they're freaking us out. So I really like that theory. I think that's cool. That's the one I'm going to go with for now until someone's able to prove otherwise. It's a little less scary than the idea of it being a demon or an evil spirit or something that has bad intentions towards us. So, but anyway, what do you think? Have you anyone out there? Let me know in the comments if you've ever had a shadow, if you've ever seen a shadow person. I think a lot more people see them than because it's not something you're really going out and report. And, some people don't want to talk about it, and I understand that. But I'm curious how many people maybe have seen something like this and what your experience was. Has anyone seen Hat Man? Let me know in the comments if you have. Anyway, that's my little discussion on shadow people. Look it up, Google it. It's pretty cool. I read a couple articles and tried to get a little background on it, but there's a lot out there. And I remember first hearing about it listening to Coast to Coast. That's a radio show. Those of you who have never heard of it, the Art Bell Show, George Norrie. That's where I first started hearing about shadow people, and that's how I actually knew what they were when Dwayne told me his story. So, anyway, hey guys, if you liked this story, if you're new here and you thought that was kind of cool, and this is up your alley, or this is something that you enjoyed, let me just invite you again to like and subscribe to this channel. Help me out. A little update on what's going on in my life. Still working on that book. I wish I was telling you it was being printed up right now, but I'm 10,000 more words in from the last time I reported my progress. So I'm 10,000 words over my word count goal, and I'm working on that ending. And it's starting to flow. It's starting to flow much better, and I think I'll be finishing it. In my mind, I have a few more chapters, and then that's it, and I'll be done. So appreciate y'all being patient with that. Another thing I really slacked off on was my audio books. So some of you will recall I was working on creating audio books for the books I've published so far. The Summoning. I'm working on the Summoning, and I've got about I don't know, I can't remember, 10 chapters recorded and edited and uploaded to the Audible website. Those chapters have passed Audible's quality standards, which are actually kind of high. It's not easy. It's not easy to achieve. And so with that, what happened is I was going along pretty good, doing these audiobooks, getting ready. I'm trying to write. I'm trying to write more books, get more books out, and I'm also trying to produce audiobooks at the same time. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of my time, a lot of my free time when I'm at home, and so just bear with me. But what happened, I was rolling along, and COVID hit, and they canceled school, and so my recording time is late at night. I had up in the attic, I had this ghetto little recording studio that I'd made out of foam and a table. And anyway, it was working. I didn't spend any money. I just grabbed foam pads that we had and just tried it. And I started reading, and I uploaded to the Audible website. And sure enough, I was passing their quality standards so far. So I was like, hey. But anyway, COVID hit and my kids were out of school and there was no more bedtime. We're terrible parents. There was no more bedtime for like a year or whatever. My kids are out of school. They're like staying up till 2, 3 in the morning, right when I would be recording. I'm staying up with them. We're watching horror movies together. It was great. But I stopped recording my audiobooks and I'm ready to pick it back up. I'm getting I've let it sit off to the side too long. So that is something else I want to start. I got to manage my time. I got to be writing, but I also want to start getting the summoning. I want to get that book out in audio format. So that's what's going on. So I am actually in the process of designing a better, like a recording booth for myself. I'm trying to decide. I have kind of like this cheap, but better than what I was doing, but still pretty cheap. And I wouldn't say ghetto, because I think this is actually be pretty decent and it would get the job done just fine. But my wife has given her blessing for me to actually build a recording booth in our basement. Just kind of like a little structure. I would actually be surrounded by 4 walls, a door I could shut, soundproof, and record in there. And if I built it just right, I don't have to wait till late at night for the whole family to go to bed. So I'm really, and that was just like a revelation of today. She's like, well, why don't you just build something? And I kind of looked at her like, you're good with that? You're good with me building a recording booth in our basement? So she said yes. So I'm not going to ask again. I'm just going to go for it. But now I've got to design it, plan it, and get it built. And hopefully, if I have a recording studio that I can just lock myself in and be soundproof no matter what time of day, then my get my audio books out should happen a lot quicker, be a lot faster, instead of me waiting until 3 o'clock in the morning and that kind of crap. So that's kind of what's going on, guys. Where are we at? It's probably time to wrap this. Oh yeah, it is time to wrap this up. Thanks for hanging out with me tonight, guys. I appreciate the watches. I appreciate the likes and the subscribes. Appreciate all the support, and I look forward to watching this channel grow, and appreciate all the comments and stuff, the shares on Facebook and all that. For those of you, again, if it's your first time, like and subscribe. Follow me on Facebook too. Instagram, Twitter, Brady Longmore. Just look it up. I'm all over, and appreciate the follows and the likes and the shares and all that. That's going to do it, guys, for this week's episode of The Writing Lair. And until we meet again, I wish you all happy reading.